The massive space station called Harmony Prime floated in the darkness between stars. Ships from 12 different worlds docked at its many ports. Inside the Great Council chamber, representatives from across the galaxy gathered for their monthly meeting. The air hummed with alien voices speaking in dozens of languages. Jake Sullivan sat alone at the small human table. His dark blue uniform looked plain next to the colorful robes and armor worn by the alien delegates. He had been Earth's ambassador for 3 years now, but the other council members still treated him like a child who wandered into an adult meeting. The Zephyrians dominated the center of the room. These tall reptile-like beings wore golden armor that gleamed under the bright lights. Their leader, Counselor Vextar, stood nearly 8 feet tall with red scales that rippled when he moved. His yellow eyes looked down at everyone else with obvious pride. On the left side sat the Corvani. These silicon-based creatures looked like living crystals that caught and reflected light in rainbow patterns. Their representative, Quindal, spoke in a voice that sounded like wind chimes. Energy crackled around her translucent body whenever she became excited. The Nexari took up the right section of the chamber. These ancient beings appeared almost human, but their pale skin glowed softly and their large black eyes seemed to see right through people. They rarely spoke aloud, preferring to communicate through their psychic abilities. Jake watched as the council discussed trade routes and mining rights. Whenever someone mentioned human space, the aliens would glance at him and smile in a way that made his stomach turn. They talked about humans like they were pets that needed constant supervision. Admiral Lisa Carter observed the meeting from her ship through a holographic display. The ESS Liberty orbited a nearby moon, ready to pick up Jake when the session ended. Lisa had short gray hair and sharp green eyes that missed nothing. She wore the simple black uniform of Earth's Space Command. Standing next to her was General Pete Morrison, head of Earth Special Operations. Pete was a big man with calloused hands and scars on his face from old battles. He crossed his arms and shook his head as he watched the aliens mock humanity. "Look at them," Pete said quietly, "acting like they own the whole galaxy." Lisa nodded. "Let them think we're weak. It makes our job easier." Back in the council chamber, Vextar stood up to address the group. His voice boomed across the room like thunder. "Fellow council members, we must discuss the human problem. Their colonies continue to expand into space that could be better used by more advanced species." Several aliens nodded in agreement. Jake felt his face grow hot, but he stayed quiet. Getting angry would only prove their point. Quindal's crystal body flashed bright blue. "The humans barely have 50 ships in their entire fleet. My people build more than that in a single month. Why do we even allow them to vote on important matters?" Laughter echoed through the chamber. Jake gripped the edge of his table so hard his knuckles turned white. He thought about his daughter back on Earth, studying to become a starship engineer. These aliens had no idea what humans were capable of. One of the Nexari finally spoke, his words appearing directly in everyone's minds. "Perhaps we should redistribute some human colonies to species that can properly defend them. The sectors near New Boston would serve our purposes well." Jake shot to his feet. "You can't just take our worlds. Those colonies have been there for 20 years. Families live there. Children were born there." Vextar turned his massive head toward Jake. "Ah, the human speaks. How amusing. Tell me, little ambassador, what exactly would Earth do if we decided to claim those worlds? Send your tiny fleet to stop us?" The reptilian leader's question brought fresh waves of laughter from the other delegates. Jake's face burned with embarrassment and rage. "Earth will defend its citizens," Jake said, trying to keep his voice steady. "With what?" Quindal asked. "Your primitive kinetic weapons? Your slow ships that take weeks to cross a single star system? We have seen your military reports, human. You are children playing with toys." More laughter filled the chamber. Jake looked around at the smug faces surrounding him. These beings controlled vast fleets of advanced warships. They had energy weapons that could crack planets and shields that could stop entire asteroid fields. Compared to them, Earth's military did look small and outdated. But Jake knew something they didn't. He had been to the secret shipyards hidden in asteroid fields throughout human space. He had seen the new weapons being tested in empty star systems far from alien eyes. Earth's apparent weakness was carefully planned. Admiral Carter touched a control on her command chair. "Pete, are our people in position?" "All units report ready," the general replied. "Operation Sleeping Giant can begin whenever you give the word." Lisa smiled coldly. "Not yet. Let them make their move first." Let them think they're dealing with helpless prey. The council vote was quick and brutal. 11 species voted to transfer 3 human colony worlds to alien control. Only Earth voted against the measure. Jake sat in stunned silence as the aliens divided up human territory like pieces of a puzzle. Vextar looked down at Jake with obvious satisfaction. The council has spoken. You have 30 days to evacuate your people from those worlds. After that, any humans remaining will be considered trespassers in Zephyrian space. Jake stood up slowly. His legs felt weak, but his voice was strong. Earth will remember this day. Oh, I'm sure you will, Vextar laughed. You'll remember it as the day you learned your proper place in the galaxy. As Jake walked out of the chamber, he could hear the aliens already discussing how to divide up the stolen colonies. They talked about human settlements like they were empty buildings waiting for new owners. The shuttle ride back to the Liberty gave Jake time to think. 3 colony worlds meant nearly 2 million human civilians, families who had worked their whole lives to build new homes on distant planets. The aliens expected these people to just pack up and leave without a fight. Admiral Carter was waiting for Jake when he arrived on the Liberty. "How did it go?" she asked, though her expression showed she already knew. "They took New Boston, Terra Verde, and Harmony Falls," Jake said. 30 days to evacuate." Lisa nodded grimly. "Then it's time. Pete, send the signal. Wake up our sleeping giants." General Morrison smiled for the first time in hours. "With pleasure, Admiral. It's time these aliens learned what happens when you corner a predator." The message went out across human space using quantum communication channels the aliens didn't even know existed. In hidden bases throughout the galaxy, Earth's true military began to move. The age of being underestimated was about to end. 3 weeks after the humiliating council meeting, massive Zephyrian warships appeared at the edge of the New Boston star system. Fleet Commander HFY stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Crimson Fang, and admired the sight of his overwhelming force. 27 dreadnoughts, each one larger than anything in the human fleet, moved in perfect formation toward the helpless colony world. HFY was Vextar's younger brother, known throughout Zephyrian space for his quick victories and brutal efficiency. His red scales were darker than most of his kind, and battle scars covered his massive arms. He had crushed rebellions on a dozen worlds, always with minimal losses to his own forces. "Communications," HFY commanded in his deep voice. "Open a channel to the human colony. Let's get this over with quickly." The communications officer, a smaller Zephyrian with green scales, worked at his console. "Channel open, Commander." HFY straightened his golden armor and activated the holographic transmitter. His image would now be broadcast to every screen on New Boston. "Humans of New Boston Colony, this is Fleet Commander HFY of the Zephyrian Empire. By order of the Galactic Council, this world now belongs to us. You have 24 hours to evacuate. Any humans remaining after that time will be treated as criminals." On the planet's surface, Colonel Amy Davis watched the transmission from her command bunker deep underground. She was a small woman with short brown hair and calm blue eyes, but her Marines knew better than to mistake her size for weakness. She had earned her rank fighting pirates in the Outer Rim systems. "Sir, should we prepare the evacuation ships?" asked Captain Ben Lewis, her second in command. Amy smiled grimly. "What evacuation ships? Send this message back to the Zephyrians. Come and take it." The bridge of the Crimson Fang fell silent when they received Amy's response. HFY stared at the communication screen in disbelief. In all his years of conquest, no one had ever refused his demands so simply. "Did they seriously just tell us to come and take it?" asked his tactical officer. HFY laughed, a sound like grinding metal. "Foolish mammals. They think courage can stop plasma cannons. Begin orbital bombardment of their military facilities. Show them what real power looks like." Meanwhile, on Earth, President Helen Brooks sat in the Oval Office with her top military advisors. Helen was a former Marine herself, with silver hair and steel-gray eyes that had seen too much war. Secretary of Defense Tom Richards spread tactical displays across the conference table. "The Zephyrians are moving exactly as we predicted," Tom said. "They expect a quick surrender followed by easy occupation." Helen nodded. "And our people on New Boston?" "Colonel Davis has her orders," replied General Morrison through the secure video link. She knows what to do. Tom pulled up another display showing ship movements throughout human space. The aliens think our entire fleet consists of 47 ships. They have no idea about the Ghost Fleet. The Ghost Fleet was humanity's greatest secret. For 30 years, Earth had been building a hidden armada in asteroid fields and empty star systems. Ships that looked like mining platforms or cargo haulers were actually heavily armed warships. Bases disguised as research stations housed weapons that could crack moons. Admiral Carter's voice came through the speakers. All units are in position. The moment HFY fires on New Boston, we can begin Phase 1. On New Boston, the first Zephyrian energy beam struck the planet's surface. The aliens expected to see human defense shields collapse immediately under their superior firepower. Instead, the shields held firm, absorbing the massive energy blasts without even flickering. HFY frowned at his tactical display. Why are their shields still active? Increase power to maximum. The Zephyrians poured more energy into their weapons, turning the sky above New Boston into a light show of crackling plasma. But the human shields continued to hold. Powered by fusion reactors the aliens didn't know existed. Captain Roy Palmer watched the bombardment from his hidden position behind a large asteroid. His stealth destroyer, the ESS Shadow, was invisible to Zephyrian sensors thanks to advanced cloaking technology. Roy was a quiet man with steady hands and patient eyes, perfect for the dangerous work of stealth operations. All Shadow Squadron ships, this is Palmer, he said into his headset. The enemy is fully committed to their attack run. Time to show them what real stealth looks like. 12 human destroyers materialized out of empty space around the Zephyrian fleet. The aliens had no idea the ships were there until quantum torpedoes began striking their hulls. These weren't the primitive kinetic weapons the aliens expected, but sophisticated energy weapons that phased through shields like they weren't even there. The first Zephyrian cruiser exploded in a brilliant flash that lit up the entire system. Then another, and another. HFY watched in horror as his supposedly superior fleet began falling apart under attack from weapons that shouldn't exist. How are they hitting us through our shields? Demanded his tactical officer. I don't know, HFY roared. Return fire, destroy those human ships. But the human vessels moved like ghosts, appearing long enough to fire their impossible weapons, then vanishing back into empty space. The Zephyrian ships, built for overwhelming firepower rather than maneuverability, couldn't track targets that could literally disappear. On New Boston's surface, Colonel Davis smiled as she watched the battle through her periscope. All units, this is Davis. The party has started upstairs, time to crash it down here. What the Zephyrians thought was an evacuation had actually been the deployment of Earth's newest weapon, mobile fortress platforms. Large transports that looked like refugee ships suddenly opened up to reveal heavily armed defense towers. These platforms rose from hidden positions all across the colony and began systematic destruction of any Zephyrian landing craft that tried to reach the surface. Lieutenant Jack Murphy led his squad of Marines in powered armor suits that made them nearly invisible. They moved through the wreckage of a crashed Zephyrian transport, their advanced sensors mapping every detail of alien technology. Jack was young but smart, with quick reflexes and a natural talent for electronics. Sir, I'm downloading their communication protocols, Jack reported to Colonel Davis. Looks like they use quantum encryption, but our computers are already breaking it. The battle in space continued to turn against the Zephyrians. Commander Nina Foster, captain of the destroyer ESS Vengeance, fired the shot that ended the fight. Her quantum torpedo phased through the Crimson Fang's shields and detonated inside the ship's main reactor. The massive dreadnought exploded like a small star, taking Fleet Commander HFY and 3,000 Zephyrian warriors with it. The surviving alien ships retreated in complete disorder, leaving behind wreckage and their wounded pride. In less than 6 hours, the mighty Zephyrian fleet had been reduced to scattered survivors running for their lives. News of the defeat spread quickly through alien communication networks, but most species dismissed the reports as exaggeration or human propaganda. The idea that primitive Earth could defeat an advanced Zephyrian fleet was simply impossible. On the bridge of the Liberty, Admiral Carter watched the tactical displays with satisfaction. Phase 1 complete. All human casualties, 0. Enemy losses, 60% of their invasion force. General Morrison grinned. Think they learned their lesson? Lisa shook her head. Not yet, but they will. Across the galaxy, alien leaders received reports of the new Boston battle with disbelief and confusion. The Corvani and Nexari, convinced the Zephyrians had simply underestimated human determination, began planning their own response. After all, how dangerous could one small planet really be? They were about to find out. The Battle of New Boston had shaken the Zephyrian Empire, but the other alien species remained unconvinced. In the crystal cities of Corvin Prime, War Commander Kolvek studied the battle reports with growing irritation. The silicon-based being's crystalline body flashed angry red colors as she processed the data. The Zephyrians lost because they underestimated human desperation, Kolvex announced to her war council. They thought overwhelming force would be enough. We know better. The other Corvani officers flickered in agreement. Their species had perfected energy weapons over thousands of years. Their plasma cannons could melt through any known shield technology, and their ships moved faster than anything else in the galaxy. The humans got lucky once, said Sub-Commander Velix, his crystal form pulsing blue. They won't be so fortunate against true Corvani military science. On the psychic homeworld of Nexus, the ancient beings gathered in their great mind-meld chambers. Elder Zarthul, oldest of their kind, projected his thoughts to the assembled council. His mental voice carried the weight of 10,000 years of experience. The humans resist because they do not understand their place. His thoughts whispered through every mind present. We will show them the futility of fighting those who can control their very thoughts. The Nexari had ended conflicts before they began by simply taking control of enemy minds. No species could resist their psychic powers for long. Humans would surrender the moment Nexari warriors entered their thoughts. War Commander Kolvex and Elder Zarthul agreed to combine their forces for a decisive strike against Earth itself. The Corvani would provide overwhelming firepower while the Nexari would break human morale with mind control. Together they would end this embarrassing rebellion quickly. Dr. Alan Wright worked in his secret laboratory beneath the Rocky Mountains on Earth. The elderly scientist had dedicated his life to understanding the fundamental laws of physics, and his discoveries had made humanity's hidden weapons possible. His gray hair was messy from long hours of work, and his lab coat was covered in equations written in his own handwriting. Admiral Carter, the quantum field generators are ready, Alan reported through his communication device. The enemy won't know what hit them. Lisa Carter stood on the bridge of the ESS Liberty, but the ship looked very different now. What had appeared to be a simple flagship was actually humanity's most advanced dreadnought. Hidden armor plating slid into place while weapon systems emerged from concealed compartments. The Liberty transformed from a peaceful vessel into a war machine. All ships, this is Admiral Carter, Lisa announced to the human fleet. The alien coalition is approaching Earth. This is what we've been preparing for. Show them what happens when they threaten our home. Captain Ross Baker commanded the destroyer ESS Thunder from his position near Mars. Ross was a veteran pilot with steady nerves and quick reflexes. He had fought in the border wars against pirates and knew how to handle his ship in combat. But today's battle would test limits no human had ever faced before. Thunder Squadron, form up on my position, Ross ordered. Remember, these aren't the Zephyrians. The Corvani are faster and the Nexari can mess with your head. Stay focused and trust your training. The alien fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the solar system. 50 Corvani cruisers moved in perfect formation, their crystal hulls reflecting the light of distant stars. Behind them came 20 Nexari vessels, dark ships that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. War Commander Kolvex studied the human defensive positions with confidence. She counted only 30 human ships spread across the entire solar system. Even accounting for hidden forces, the aliens outnumbered the humans by at least 2 to 1. Begin the attack, Kolvex commanded. Target their largest ships first. Show them the power of true Corvani weaponry. The Corvani opened fire with their plasma cannons, sending streams of superheated energy toward the human fleet. The beams moved at near light speed, impossible to dodge by any normal ship. But the human vessels didn't try to dodge. Instead, they did something the aliens had never seen before. Commander Sue Nelson piloted the escort ship ESS Lightning using humanity's newest technology. As the Corvani plasma beams approached her ship, Sue activated the quantum drive. The lightning simply disappeared from normal space, reappearing behind the alien formation before the energy blasts had even reached her original position. "What just happened?" demanded Subcommander Velix aboard the Corvani flagship. "I don't know," Kolvex replied, her crystal body flashing confused orange patterns. Their ship moved faster than light, but not through hyperspace. "How is that possible?" Dr. Wright's quantum field technology allowed human ships to briefly exist outside normal spacetime. They could appear anywhere within several light minutes instantaneously, making them nearly impossible to hit and allowing them to strike from unexpected angles. The lightning fired its quantum torpedoes at point-blank range into the Corvani rear guard. The weapons phased through alien shields and armor like they weren't there, exploding inside the ship's reactor cores. 3 Corvani cruisers vanished in brilliant flashes before their crews even realized they were under attack. "Impossible," Kolvex shrieked. "No weapon can penetrate our shields." Elder Zarthol decided it was time for the Nexari to act. "Corvani allies, we will break their minds and end this quickly," his mental voice projected to the crystal beings. "No species can resist our psychic domination." The Nexari ships moved forward, their pale crews focusing their mental powers on the human vessels. Psychic energy, invisible but deadly, reached out toward the minds of human pilots and officers. The aliens expected immediate surrender as human brains were overwhelmed by telepathic control. Instead, Major Dan Rogers led his Marine boarding party against the lead Nexari vessel, using small assault shuttles. Dan was a big man with scars on his face and hands that told stories of many battles. His Marines wore special helmets designed by Dr. Wright to protect their minds from psychic attacks. "Sir, they're trying to get inside our heads," reported Sergeant Kate Brown over the radio. "Let them try," Dan replied grimly. "Our neural shielding will keep them out." The Nexari psychics strained against the human mental defenses, pouring more power into their telepathic assaults. But the neural shielding held firm. Human brain patterns, evolved on a world full of predators and constant danger, were naturally more resistant to mental control than the aliens had expected. Dan's assault shuttles punched through the Nexari ship's hull using focused plasma cutters. His Marines stormed through the corridors, their weapons firing specially designed rounds that disrupted psychic energy. The ancient aliens, who had relied on mind control for thousands of years, had no idea how to fight an enemy they couldn't dominate mentally. Back in the main battle, Admiral Carter revealed the Liberty's true capabilities. The ship's quantum cannons fired beams of pure energy that rewrote matter at the molecular level. Corvani ships that had survived for centuries simply ceased to exist as their atomic structure was rearranged into harmless space. Tustock Captain Baker and his Thunder Squadron used their quantum drives to dance between enemy formations, appearing and disappearing like ghosts. The aliens couldn't predict where the human ships would be from one second to the next, making their superior numbers meaningless. "All ships, concentrate fire on the flagship," Ross ordered. "Let's show them what coordinated tactics look like." 12 human destroyers appeared simultaneously around the Corvani command ship. Their quantum torpedoes struck from every direction at once, overwhelming the alien vessel's defenses through pure coordination rather than raw power. War Commander Kolvex watched her fleet disintegrate around her. Ships that had ruled the galaxy for millennia were being destroyed by primitive humans using impossible technology. Her crystal body flickered through every color of fear and confusion. "Retreat," she finally ordered. "All ships withdraw immediately." The surviving alien vessels fled toward the edge of the solar system, leaving behind wreckage and their shattered pride. Major Rogers and his Marines had captured the Nexari command ship, taking Elder Zarthol prisoner along with vital intelligence about alien military capabilities. Admiral Carter surveyed the battlefield from the Liberty's bridge. "Casualty report?" she asked her tactical officer. "Human losses. 2 ships damaged, minimal casualties. Enemy losses. 43 ships destroyed, 7 captured." Lisa nodded with satisfaction. "Send a message to all alien governments. Earth is no longer interested in being underestimated." The news of humanity's second crushing victory spread through the galaxy like wildfire. This time no one could dismiss the reports as exaggeration. 2 different alien species, using completely different tactics and technologies, had been decisively defeated by the same human forces. In council chambers across the galaxy, alien leaders stared at battle footage in stunned silence. The humans weren't just lucky or desperate. They were using technology that shouldn't exist and fighting with a level of coordination that seemed impossible. For the first time in galactic history, the advanced species began to fear the primitive newcomers from Earth. Emergency sessions were called in council chambers across the galaxy as news of Earth's victories spread like wildfire. In the floating crystal cities of Corvin Prime, surviving military commanders huddled around holographic displays showing the wreckage of their once mighty fleet. The proud Corvani had never suffered such a complete defeat in their 1,000-year history. War Commander Kolvex sat in chains in a human detention facility, her crystal body flickering weak orange patterns of humiliation. The interrogation recordings she had provided revealed disturbing truths about alien military capabilities and, more importantly, their limitations. On the gas giant world of Typhon's Eye, the Hegemony Council gathered in their vast underwater cities. These were the oldest and most powerful aliens in the galaxy, species so advanced they rarely bothered with lesser beings. Ambassador Cretan, a creature that looked like living shadow, addressed the assembled powers. The humans have destroyed 2 major fleets using technology we don't understand. Cretan's voice echoed through the water like whale song. Perhaps it's time we took them seriously. Elder Vorthak, a being older than most civilizations, rippled his tentacles in disagreement. They are still primitives. Their victories came from surprise and desperation. Once we understand their tricks, they will fall like any other upstart species. The hegemony species had ruled the galaxy for 50,000 years. They commanded resources beyond imagination and possessed weapons that could destroy star systems. The idea that a species barely 50 years out of their home system could challenge them seemed laughable. But Admiral Carter knew the aliens would eventually come with everything they had. She stood in the war room deep beneath Earth's surface, surrounded by holographic displays showing ship movements throughout the galaxy. General Morrison pointed to a cluster of red dots moving toward human space. Long-range sensors show at least 200 ships gathering at the nexus point, Pete reported. Multiple species, including some we've never seen before. Dr. Wright looked up from his calculations, his old eyes bright with excitement. They're bringing their best technology to bear. Energy weapons, matter converters, reality manipulators. This will be the real test, Lisa nodded grimly. Then it's time to show them what humans can really do. Activate Operation Deep Strike. Operation Deep Strike was humanity's most ambitious military plan. For years they had been building secret bases in empty star systems throughout the galaxy. Hidden shipyards had constructed vessels using technology so advanced that even Dr. Wright barely understood how some of it worked. Captain Eddie Martinez commanded one of these secret facilities from his base. Inside a hollow asteroid, the facility looked like a simple mining operation from the outside. But inside it housed the construction yards for humanity's newest weapons. Eddie was a former engineer who had volunteered to spend 5 years in isolation building Earth's hidden fleet. Admiral, the Titan-class dreadnoughts are ready for deployment, Eddie reported. All 12 ships have passed their final tests. The Titan-class ships were humanity's answer to alien supremacy. Each one was larger than anything Earth had ever built before, armed with weapons that could crack planets and defended by shields that bent space itself. But their most important feature was their crews. Major Sarah Kim stood on the bridge of the first Titan-class ship, the ESS Defiance. Sarah had been chosen to command this vessel because of her unique ability to interface directly with the ship's quantum computer systems. Neural implants allowed her to think at the speed of light, processing thousands of tactical decisions per second. All stations report ready, Sarah announced to her crew. Let's show these aliens what happens when they threaten Earth. The alien armada approached the Sol system with confidence born of absolute superiority. Led by the ancient hegemony species, the combined fleet represented the greatest military force in galactic history. Elder Vorthak commanded from his massive flagship, a living ship grown rather than built, that existed partially outside normal space. Begin long-range bombardment, Vorthak commanded with his thoughts. Reduce their worlds to cosmic dust. The aliens opened fire from beyond the orbit of Pluto, using weapons that traveled through hyperspace to strike their targets instantly. Energy beams capable of burning through moon-sized asteroids lanced toward Earth and its colonies, but the beams never reached their targets. Instead, they struck massive energy shields that surrounded the entire solar system. Dr. Wright's greatest creation, a defensive grid powered by the sun itself, absorbed the alien attacks and converted them into raw energy for Earth's own weapons. "Impossible," whispered Cretan aboard his shadow ship. "No species has ever built defenses on such a scale." Admiral Carter smiled as she watched the alien surprise from her command center. "All ships, this is Carter. Execute Deep Strike Protocol. Show them what real military power looks like." The space around the alien fleet suddenly filled with human warships, not the small vessels the aliens expected, but massive dreadnoughts that appeared out of quantum space like avenging angels. The Titan-class ships materialized in perfect formation, their hulls gleaming with energy that hurt to look at directly. Commander Bob Franklin piloted the experimental stealth carrier ESS Phantom, a ship so advanced it existed in 7 dimensions simultaneously. His fighter squadrons launched through portals that opened directly into enemy formations, allowing human pilots to attack from inside alien shield perimeters. "Phantom Squadron, this is Franklin," Bob announced to his pilots. "Remember, these aren't training targets. These are the species that wanted to wipe out humanity, make them pay for their arrogance." The human fighters moved through the alien fleet like sharks through a school of fish. Their quantum torpedoes could phase through any known defense, while their pilots used neural interfaces to react faster than any biological being could follow. Lieutenant Mary Foster, daughter of the hero of New Boston, led her squadron against the Hegemony flagship. Mary had trained her entire life for this moment, knowing that her generation would either secure humanity's place in the galaxy or die trying. "Target their command structure," Mary ordered her wingmen. "Let's cut the head off this snake." The aliens fought back with weapons that defied physics. Reality warping cannons tried to erase human ships from existence. Matter converters attempted to transform human hulls into harmless gas. But Earth's technology had evolved beyond such simple attacks. Major Kim commanded the Defiance through impossible maneuvers, her enhanced mind processing tactical data faster than any computer. She could see the battle unfolding in slow motion, predicting enemy movements and positioning her ship for maximum advantage. "Firing main batteries," Sarah announced calmly. "Target, enemy flagship." The Defiance's quantum lance struck Vorthak's living ship with the force of a collapsing star. The ancient vessel, which had survived for 1,000,000 years, simply ceased to exist as its molecular structure was converted to pure energy. Throughout the fleet, similar scenes played out as human technology overwhelmed alien defenses. Ships that had ruled the galaxy for millennia crumbled under weapons that rewrote the laws of physics. The proud species that had gathered to destroy, humanity found themselves being systematically dismantled by an enemy they had dismissed as primitive. Elder Cretan attempted to rally the surviving alien forces. "All ships concentrate fire on their largest vessel. If we can destroy their flagship, we can still win this battle." But the ESS Defiance was only one of 12 Titan-class ships, and each one was capable of facing an entire alien fleet alone. The human dreadnoughts moved through the enemy formation like wolves among sheep, their weapons striking with precision that seemed almost artistic. Dr. Wright watched the battle from his laboratory, monitoring the performance of his creations. "Fascinating," he murmured to himself. "The quantum field interactions are exceeding all theoretical predictions." The old scientist had spent decades developing technology that seemed impossible even to him. By combining human creativity with principles stolen from the deepest laws of physics, he had created weapons that could challenge forces that controlled the galaxy. Captain Martinez launched the final phase of the battle from his hidden asteroid base. Massive mining ships that had been disguised as cargo haulers suddenly revealed their true nature as planet-killer weapons. These vessels moved toward the alien homeworlds, their mere presence sending waves of terror through enemy communication networks. "This is Captain Martinez to all alien commanders," Eddie announced on open frequencies. "Your fleets are broken. Your most advanced weapons have failed. Surrender now or watch your homeworlds burn." The threat was enough to break alien morale completely. Species that had never known defeat suddenly faced the possibility of extinction at the hands of beings they considered barely above animals. Surrender signals began flooding the communication networks as proud alien commanders bowed to Earth's superior might. Admiral Carter accepted the alien surrender from the Bridge of the Liberty. The battle had lasted 6 hours and ended with the complete destruction of galactic military power. Humanity, The species that had been mocked and dismissed just months before now stood as the undisputed master of known space. 6 months after the Battle of Sol, the galaxy looked very different. The Great Council chamber on Harmony Prime had been rebuilt and expanded, but the seating arrangements told a new story. Where once alien representatives had dominated the center of the room, now humans occupied the positions of honor. Ambassador Jake Sullivan entered the chamber to complete silence. The same beings who had mocked him and laughed at his protest now rose to their feet in respectful greeting. Jake wore the same simple blue uniform as before, but now it carried the weight of absolute military supremacy. Counselor Vextar, one of the few surviving Zephyrian leaders, stepped forward with his head bowed low. The proud reptilian being who had once towered over Jake now looked small and defeated. His golden armor was gone, replaced by plain gray robes that marked him as a supplicant rather than a conqueror. Ambassador Sullivan, Vextar said in a voice barely above a whisper, on behalf of the Zephyrian Empire, I formally apologize for our grave miscalculations regarding humanity's capabilities. We did not understand who we were dealing with. Jake looked around the chamber at the assembled alien representatives. Fear flickered in every eye, from the crystal forms of the Corvani to the shadowy shapes of the hegemony survivors. These beings who had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years now waited for his words like children awaiting judgment. The past is done, Jake said simply. What matters now is the future. Humanity seeks peace, but it will be peace based on respect, not the charity of those who think themselves superior. President Helen Brooks appeared via hologram, her image filling the center of the chamber. The alien delegates immediately stood again, showing the deference they had never offered before. Helen's presence commanded attention in a way that no human leader had ever experienced. Fellow beings of the galaxy, Helen began, her voice carrying easily through the vast chamber. Today we establish new principles for galactic civilization. No longer will advanced species prey upon those they consider primitive. No longer will military might determine who deserves freedom and who deserves slavery. The 3 human colony worlds that had been stolen months before were not only returned but expanded far beyond their original borders. Mayor Bill Thompson of New Boston found himself governing a system of 12 worlds instead of 1, as grateful alien populations requested human protection from their former rulers. It's incredible, Bill told his wife over their evening meal. 6 months ago they wanted to drive us out. Now they're begging us to stay and teach them our ways. Colonel Amy Davis had been promoted to general and now commanded the defense forces for the entire sector. Her underground bunker had been expanded into a massive military complex that served as the headquarters for human peacekeeping operations throughout local space. The former Zephyrian territories are completely pacified, Amy reported to Admiral Carter during their weekly briefing. Most of their military commanders have requested reassignment to human-led units. They want to learn our tactics and technologies. Dr. Wright worked in a new laboratory complex on Luna, surrounded by alien scientists who hung on his every word. The elderly physicist found himself explaining principles that he had discovered through decades of human innovation to beings who had spent millennia believing their science was perfect. The key insight, Alan explained to a gathering of Corvani researchers, is that there are always more elegant solutions. Your species focused on raw power and brute force applications. Humans learned to work with natural laws rather than overwhelming them. The crystal beings flickered in patterns that indicated deep thought and growing understanding. They had begun redesigning their technology using human principles, achieving results that surpassed their previous capabilities while using a fraction of the energy. Admiral Carter stood on the bridge of the Liberty, now officially designated as the flagship of the Galactic Defense Force. The ship had been refitted again, this time incorporating alien technologies that had been freely shared by species desperate to earn human approval. Admiral, we're receiving requests for human military advisors from 17 different systems, reported her communications officer. They want our help organizing their defense forces using human methods. Lisa smiled as she reviewed the requests. Former enemies now competed for the privilege of learning from the species they had once dismissed. The galaxy's power structure had been completely reversed in less than a year. Captain Ross Baker commanded a new training facility in the asteroid belts, where alien pilots learned to fly using human tactical principles. The differences were remarkable. Aliens who had relied on overwhelming technological superiority for thousands of years struggled to adapt to human concepts of improvisation and flexibility. Remember, Ross told a class of mixed alien cadets, technology is just a tool. Victory comes from understanding your enemy and adapting faster than they can respond. Rigid thinking leads to rigid tactics, and rigid tactics lead to defeat. The former Nixari territories presented special challenges. Elder Zarthul, now released from human custody, worked with Major Dan Rogers to establish new governments that didn't rely on psychic domination. The ancient beings struggled to understand concepts like democratic consent and individual rights. For 10,000 years, we simply took control of minds when we needed cooperation, Zarthul explained to Dan during one of their planning sessions. The idea of persuading rather than commanding is difficult for us to grasp, Dan nodded patiently. It takes practice, but it creates stronger societies in the long run. When people choose to follow you, they fight harder than when they're forced to obey. The economic transformation was just as dramatic as the political changes. Human trade ships, protected by the most advanced military in the galaxy, carried goods and ideas to every corner of known space. Captain Sue Nelson, now commanding a massive cargo fleet, found herself managing trade routes that spanned hundreds of star systems. The aliens are eager to trade for our technology, Sue reported to Earth's Commerce Department. But they're even more interested in our organizational methods and social structures. They want to understand how we create such effective cooperation without resorting to force. Dr. Wright's daughter, Elena Wright, had taken over the scientific exchange programs. The young physicist found herself teaching classes to beings who were older than human civilization, sharing discoveries that challenged everything the aliens thought they knew about the universe. The most important lesson, Elena told her alien students, is that there's always more to learn. The moment you think you understand everything is the moment you stop growing. General Morrison established the Galactic Security Council, with himself as the first human director. The former alien military, leaders who served under him, showed a dedication and loyalty that surprised even Pete himself. They're not just following orders, he explained to President Brooks during a secure briefing. They genuinely believe in what we're building. For the first time in their history, they're part of something that creates rather than destroys. The transformation wasn't without challenges. Some alien species, particularly those from the Outer Rim, resented human dominance and organized resistance movements. But these rebellions were quickly suppressed by the very aliens who had once opposed humanity. War Commander Kolvex, released from detention and restored to a position of authority, led Corvani forces against rebels in her own territory. Her crystal body now flickered with determination rather than humiliation as she fought to protect the new order. The humans showed us a better way, she explained to her officers. We will not allow ignorant fools to destroy what we've helped build. Ambassador Jake Sullivan found his role changing from Earth's representative to the galaxy's mediator. Disputes that might once have led to wars were now brought to him for resolution. The being who had been mocked and dismissed now held the respect of 1,000 worlds. As Jake prepared for another council session, he reflected on how much had changed. The chamber that had once echoed with alien laughter at human expense now buzzed with productive discussion about trade agreements, scientific exchanges, and peaceful exploration. Admiral Carter's final report to Earth summarized the transformation. Galactic pacification is complete. Former enemy species have been integrated into our defensive network and are contributing to galactic stability. No organized resistance remains. Human colonies are expanding peacefully throughout the galaxy with full alien cooperation. The age of conquest is over. The age of cooperation has begun. President Brooks smiled as she read the report in the Oval Office. Through the window, she could see ships from a dozen alien worlds landing at the expanded spaceport outside Washington. Beings who had once plotted humanity's destruction now came as students, allies, and friends. The galaxy had learned that true strength came not from the size of your fleet or the power of your weapons, but from the courage to stand up for what was right and the wisdom to show mercy to those who had been your enemies. Humanity had been mocked for their apparent weakness, but they had proven that sometimes the greatest strength lies in being underestimated. The stars themselves bore witness to a new truth. In a galaxy full of advanced civilizations, the most dangerous species was the